Discover the incredible journey of a young immigrant who transformed challenges into Levi's legacy. Levi Mendoza stepped off the bus, the city's cacophony crashing over him like a tidal wave. Honking cars, chattering crowds, and the distant wail of sirens vibrated through him. He felt a storm inside, a mix of fear and excitement. He clutched the old leather satchel that held not just his meager belongings but the weight of his family's hopes, their belief that he would succeed where they could not. The streets glistened, filled with life, but shadows lurked. Levi could feel them, eyes that scrutinized him, whispers that spoke of him without him. With the sun warming his back, he squared his shoulders and walked, determined to find work. He remembered his parents' smiles as they sent him off, faces lined with sacrifice, dreaming of a future brighter than the fields they worked. Days turned into weeks as Levi found a job at a local hardware store. He tackled every task with dedication, his hands shaking slightly from the weight of boots that didn't quite fit right. His boss, an older woman named Mrs. Hart, admired his work ethic, but the customers were often less welcoming. "Hey, get a load of that kid," they mutter, casting sideways glances. His heartbeat raced, but he silenced the doubt, reminding himself why he came. One day, while stocking shelves, Mr. Thompson, a local veteran with a twinkle in his eye, gently placed a hand on Levi's shoulder. "You've got something special, son. Don't let anyone dim that light." But Levi felt the walls of skepticism closing in like a vice grip. How could he change minds when he felt like an outsider looking in? Then came that fateful evening. A tragic accident rattled the community. A local shop owner, beloved by all, was hit by a car. Fear trickled through the neighborhood, weaving itself into the fabric of their lives. The murmurs grew louder. Blame was cast. Fingers pointed. The divide rippled with tension. Feeling the heavy weight of responsibility, Levi decided to act. He organized a gathering at the park to remember the shop owner, to show unity. He stood before the crowd, heart pounding loudly in his chest, the bitter wind stinging his eyes. "We're all human," he called out, voice cracking. "We can do better." His plea echoed, but resistance was thick in the air. Just when he thought he might break through, a harsh voice cut through the murmur. "You think you belong here? Why don't you go back?" The words struck him like a slap. Levi's stomach dropped, insecurity surging within him. Would he always be the unwelcome stranger? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let us continue. Over the next few days, Levi's heart waged war with his mind. He wanted to hide, to melt into a shadow, but then he saw his parents' faces in his mind. Their dreams, their sacrifices. With newfound resolve, he forced himself to step back into the crowd, to face the jeers and the uncertainty as he watched the sun dip low in the horizon, the colors casting a dim light on the community around him. He realized it was now or never. Could he be the bridge, the one to help connect the scattered hearts of his new home? Was he ready to risk it all again, knowing that belonging came at a cost? Levi took a deep breath, a mix of hope and fear, knowing that this moment could be the tipping point, his legacy hanging between the past he honored and the future he yearned to build. The stage was set and the stakes were high. Could he rise above, igniting a spark in his neighbors, or would he fall silent in the shadows? The chill in the air seemed to amplify the silence that hung over the park. Levi stood before the small crowd, a mix of familiar and unfamiliar faces. Their expressions varied, from curiosity to condescension, but all were watching him. Every heartbeat echoed between his ears, drowning out the whispers of fear that threatened to pull him back into darkness. "Look," he started, his voice trembling but firm. "What happened to Mr. Alvarez was a tragedy that touches us all. We can't afford to let fear divide us." As he spoke, he caught a glimpse of Mrs. Hart, standing at the back with concerned eyes, silently urging him on. It filled him with a small spark of courage. Each of us has a story, a reason to be here, he continued. I came to the city with hopes and dreams just like you. And despite the struggles, every day I wake up grateful for the chance to be part of this community. Levi's gaze swept across the crowd, searching for any sign of connection. But that connection means nothing if we don't stand together. As he poured his heart out, he saw a few nodding. Some looked puzzled, others unsure. But it was a start. He recounted the kindness of Mr. Thompson, the warmth that came from Mrs. Hart's encouragement, reflecting on moments that showed him a glimpse of belonging. In the wake of tragedy, he spoke of the strength found in unity. Suddenly, the harsh voice cut through again. This isn't your home. You don't know anything about us. It was a young man with crossed arms, anger flaring in his eyes. Levi felt that familiar sting of rejection, but he pressed on, his resolve hardening. I may not have been born here, he responded, forcing calmness into his tone, but I'm learning. I'm investing in this community. I want to help it grow, not just for me, but for all of us. We're stronger together. A hush fell over the crowd, as if they were taking in his words for the first time. He felt the tension shift, just slightly, like a breeze rustling through leaves. They were listening. Then, an unexpected voice joined in. An older woman stepped forward. Yes, right. I've seen Levi work hard, day in and day out. We should be honoring each other, not tearing each other down. Her words hung in the air, giving Levi a glimmer of hope. More voices joined hers, adding to a swelling tide of support. He helps us. He deserves to be here just as much as anyone, shouted a man from the back. The crowd began to stir, energy building like the swell before a wave. Levi's heart raced. Could this really be happening? For the first time, he felt a flicker of acceptance washing over him. Maybe he wouldn't have to fight alone. Just as the atmosphere began to change, an unexpected shadow loomed. The young man who had opposed him stepped forward, ready to unleash another wave of hostility. You think words will change anything? You really think you belong here? The skepticism returned, sharp and biting. In that moment, Levi faced a choice. Would he falter under the pressure, that familiar fear creeping back, or would he dig deep and respond to this challenge? Taking a deep breath, he met the young man's gaze. Belonging isn't just a word. Takes effort, understanding, and yes, sometimes even facing hostility. But I'm willing to try. Are you? The murmurs in the crowd shifted again, this time in Levi's favor. Hope mingled with uncertainty, but the spark had been lit. What would happen next could determine the course of not just his story, but the heart of the community around him. As the tension crackled in the night air, Levi felt a surge of fire within him. With everything on the line, could he convert doubt into acceptance, and finally lay down the roots of his legacy? And as those thoughts raced through his mind, he wondered, was it enough to just speak, or did he need to take bolder action to truly create the change he envisioned? Levi stood there, adrenaline rushing through his veins. The moment was ripe for change, yet he understood that talk alone wouldn't cut it. His words had opened a door, but stepping through required action. He scanned the faces in the crowd once more. Some lingered in doubt, others were beginning to look more hopeful. Mrs. Hart's kind smile encouraged him to push forward. Let us not just talk, he said, his voice gaining strength. Let us do something together. An idea sparked in his mind, a community project that could unite them. What if we held a cleanup day? We can come together, pick up the park, and make it a better place? Everyone can contribute, no matter who they are. The crowd shifted again. There were whispers and exchanges, some nodding along, others still skeptical. But Levi pressed on. This can be about building bridges, sharing stories, and strengthening our ties. We can involve everyone, local businesses, schools, families. It doesn't have to be complicated. Just let us work together for a common goal. The young man who had opposed him looked taken aback. He hesitated, perhaps weighing the possibility of collaboration against his skepticism. Levi noticed it, the change in body language. Even if the young man didn't believe in him yet, Maybe he could believe in a project, something tangible. A voice spoke from the back, tentative but growing bolder. I think it's a good idea, a woman said. If we clean this place up, it'll show we care about our community. Levi felt a surge of hope as people began to chatter about the logistics. It was happening. They were excited. Great. We can meet this weekend, Levi said, trying to keep the momentum. Let us make it a fun event. Games. Food. We could even share stories while we work. He felt the warmth of possibility spreading through him, igniting that fire he sensed earlier. And then, Levi's heart sank when he remembered the other communities he'd heard about, the ones torn apart by strife, misunderstanding, and fear. Were they in danger of becoming one of those sad tales? He felt the urgency grow. But it's important that everyone is involved. Each voice counts. Slowly, one by one, more people began to raise their hands, signaling their agreement to pitch in. The younger man watched but said nothing. He stood rigid, brows furrowed, a mix of contemplation and uncertainty played out on his face. Levi knew he needed to reach him. Even if we disagree on things, we can still work side by side, he called out, hoping to bridge the gap. With each person stepping in, Levi started to feel a sense of momentum. The energy shifted palpably. They discussed what supplies they needed and how to gather them. Kids began to talk about games they wanted to play. Mrs. Hart, always nurturing, suggested they organize a potluck. Then, Levi spotted the young man again. Levi approached him slightly, feeling the gravity of the moment. Hey, I understand if you still have doubts, but how about you join us? This isn't just about me, it's about all of us. The young man crossed his arms tighter, facing him with defiance. Levi held his breath, searching for a flicker of hesitation in that guarded demeanor. Why should I? He replied, his voice low and intense. And in that moment, Levi realized their conversation wasn't just about him. It was a challenge for the entire community. Could they truly break down barriers and misunderstandings together? The night wrapped around them, thick with possibility, and Levi felt the weight of what was at stake. His vision for unity needed to be painted on the canvas of their actions. The stakes were rising, and this gathering was only the beginning. Would they risk their old ways, stepping into something new? Would the young man take a chance? It all rested on the next moments, and Levi wasn't sure if he had what it took to push them forward. The air crackled with anticipation as the crowd awaited a response. How would the young man react? Would Levi's call to unity become reality? Or would it flicker and fade just like the evening light? The young man's gaze was like a storm, brewing with emotion. Levi could feel the tension stretching between them like a taut wire. Every person in the crowd felt it too. Eyes turned toward the young man, waiting, holding their breaths in unison. He opened his mouth, and for an instant, Levi thought he might throw a harsh rebuttal back. But instead, the young man hesitated, a flicker of something, not quite certainty. But it wasn't outright rejection either. Levi seized the moment, stepping closer, as if drawing light to a shadow. Look, I know we might not see eye to eye. I get it. But I believe this community is worth trying for. Worth fighting for, Levi said, his voice dropping to convey sincerity. It's not just about trash on the ground. It's about our pride, our stories, and who we are. What if we spent a day working together? You might discover something different about us, about yourself. The young man's brow relaxed a fraction, and the crowd began to murmur, sensing a shift. But what if no one shows? What if it just becomes another empty promise? His voice was quieter now, almost vulnerable. Then we pick ourselves up, dust off, and try again, Levi said, feeling a wave of conviction. That's how we grow. That's how change happens. The young man's posture softened slightly, arms loosening, eyes searching Levi's face, weighing the authenticity of his words. Behind them, Mrs. Hart smiled broadly, whispering encouragement into the ears of those nearby. Others joined in, speaking in huddled groups. I'll think about it, the young man finally replied, his voice uncertain but tinged with possibility. Levi could hardly contain his excitement. That's enough. You don't have to commit right now. Just Come see what it looks like. This isn't about perfection. It's about progress. We all take one step forward together. The crowd buzzed, an electric overtone of excitement mixing with uncertainty. Like seeds breaking through soil, hope began to grow. As the meeting wrapped up, Levi walked among the group, listening to snippets of conversation, laughter bubbling, plans forming. There was a palpable shift. People were no longer just standing around as spectators. They were investing their hearts and dreams into what was to come. The day they envisioned the cleanup day was starting to take shape. Yet, with that blossoming hope came an unmistakable weight of responsibility. Levi caught Mrs. Hart's eyes over the heads of the crowd. She nodded, knowing both the challenges ahead and the importance of this moment. He felt an overwhelming urge to make this work, to see it through. The days unfolded into a flurry of organization. Flyers were created, and social media buzzed with activity. Local businesses offered support, promising supplies and food. Levi's heart swelled as he watched people begin to step out of their comfort zones, connecting, sharing. On the eve of the cleanup, Levi couldn't sleep. He tossed and turned, his mind racing. What if no one showed? Or worse, what if those who came didn't get along? What if they arrived with just as much division as they left with? In the quiet moments, Levi remembered the young man's challenge, the doubt in his words. As dawn broke, he resolved to find him again. He knew that he had to face that uncertainty head-on. Could he really convince everyone that they could stand together? Would the young man show up, ready to unite for a common cause? Would Levi's faith in their community be rewarded? Or would it vanish with the sunlight of a new day? The answers lingered just beyond reach, a tantalizing choice waiting to be made. The sun peeked through the curtains as Levi sat on the edge of his bed, the weight of anticipation pressing down. The vibrant colors of dawn spilled into his small room, a warm reminder that today was the day. His heart raced as he glanced at the clock. Time was slipping away, and soon the whole community would gather for the cleanup. He shoved his phone into his pocket, gripping it tightly. Levi had promised to connect with the young man, the one who had ignited a flicker of hope. What if he didn't show? That thought gnawed at him. But he had made a commitment to the community, and that meant facing every fear, every doubt. The smell of coffee carried through the air as he stepped into the kitchen. Mrs. Hart had beaten him to it, a steaming cup in her hands. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she chuckled, her eyes twinkling with encouragement. "I don't know if anyone will actually show up," Levi admitted, his voice trailing off. "Just look outside," she said, motioning towards the door. Levi turned to see his neighbors milling about, gathering supplies, laughing, and chatting like old friends. There was a sense of unity in their chaos, the kind that made his heart flutter. "Maybe they believe in the vision," Mrs. Hart offered, her gentle smile reassuring. "Or maybe they just want to be part of something good." He took a deep breath, emboldened by her words. "You're right. This isn't just about cleaning up. It's about bringing people together." As he stepped outside, the sun felt warm on his skin, a burst of energy that filled the air with promise. Groups were forming, clumps of laughter and excitement blending with nervous chatter. Levi's eyes darted around, searching for the young man, but all he spotted were familiar faces and a few new ones, all excited to roll up their sleeves. Just then, he spotted a familiar silhouette standing a little apart from the rest. The young man stood there, hands shoved into his pockets, looking uncertain. Levi's pulse quickened. He had to approach him. "Hey!" Levi called out, trying to match his enthusiasm with sincerity. "I'm glad you came." The young man looked up, surprise flickering across his face. "I wasn't sure," he confessed, voice barely audible over the chatter. "But I thought maybe it'd be different." "It already is," Levi said, gesturing to the gathering people. "You're here. We're all here. That's a start, right?" For a moment, the young man's lips twisted into a tentative smile, one that held the promise of understanding. Levi felt the tension break, if only for an instant, and an encouraging cheer erupted from the crowd. "Let us get started," Levi announced, the energy surging through him. Together, they formed groups, assigning tasks, laughing and sharing stories as they prepped to tackle the larger project of revitalizing their community. But as the work commenced, tension still lingered. Levi noticed small spats, disagreements flaring up here and there, as they picked through the debris that cluttered their shared spaces. Each incident tightened the knots in his stomach. Yet, he pushed himself to stay positive. He moved between groups, reminding them of the larger goal, steering conversations back to hope. Then, while digging through an overgrown area, a piece of rusted metal broke loose, sending clumps of dirt tumbling down. Suddenly, Levi heard a sharp intake of breath, followed by a shout. "Watch out!" He turned and saw the young man leap to help someone who had stumbled. The moment it happened, everything seemed to pause, the chaos around them fading into silence. What had begun as a community cleanup was morphing into something deeper, a test of unity and resilience. Levi's heart raced as he realized they were all at a crossroads. Could they emerge stronger from this together, or would the fractures deepen? As Levi looked around, he sensed the collective heartbeat of the day. They were on the brink, not just of cleaning their space but transforming their lives together. But would they grasp the chance to change fully, or would they slip back into the shadows of division they had once known? This was the moment that could define everything. Would they be brave enough to embrace it? Levi's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the young man spring into action. The way he reached out to help, eyes wide with concern, brought a new wave of energy to the group. Their fears, once gnawing and insistent, seemed to fade as hope surged through them. "Are you okay?" the young man asked, kneeling beside the fallen neighbor, his voice steady. Levi felt a flicker of admiration. Here was a person willing to bridge gaps and stand up for someone he barely knew. The neighbor nodded, brushing off dirt and leaves. "Yeah, just a little clumsy today." Laughter bubbled from nearby groups, lightening the moment and breaking the tension that had briefly hovered over them as the work resumed. Levi found himself drawn to the young man, who had taken the lead in organizing the nearest cluster. He watched as the stranger encouraged others to pitch in, pointing out those who might be too shy to jump in. It was as though he ignited a spark that spread from one person to the next, transforming uncertainty into collective enthusiasm. Levi felt a smile stretch across his face, a lingering hope taking root. Perhaps today could mean more than just cleaning. Maybe it could mend a community that had been frayed at the edges for far too long. Yet, not everything flowed smoothly. A gust of wind blew through, rustling papers and lifting a tool off a nearby table, which sent someone's patience bubbling over. "Can you just focus? This isn't a game," a woman shouted, her frustration bouncing off the trees. Levi stepped in. "Let us take a breath," he said, raising his hands, hoping to diffuse the situation. "We're all here for the same reason. Let us remember what we're working toward." People exchanged hesitant glances, but the young man stepped up beside him. "Yeah, let us not lose sight of that. We're together in this." His voice was firm, resonating with conviction. The tension softened, replaced by a unified resolve that made Levi's heart swell. They carried on, laughter punctuating the work, as old grievances faded in the wake of newfound purpose. As the sun climbed higher, Levi looked around. The area was transforming, litter cleared, debris removed, and vibrant flower beds emerging. Each visible change whispered of hope and renewal. He caught the young man's eye. They shared a nod, a silent understanding that something profound was unfolding. Levi wanted to reach out, to express his gratitude. This young immigrant, who had once felt like an outsider, was becoming a cornerstone of their collective healing. He hesitated, wanting to understand more about him and his journey, what drove the hope in his eyes. Just then, a sudden cheer erupted as the volunteer team unveiled the freshly painted community sign. It shimmered in colors of blues and greens, encapsulating their spirit. "Together we can," it proclaimed, an anthem for their budding unity. Levi felt his heart swell with pride and something deeper. In this very moment, each person there began to belong. They were building something forward, but the day was not yet over. He looked at the young man, whose smile seemed to shine as brightly as the sun above. "Want to keep working on the mural together?" Levi called out, his excitement sparking a fire within him. Absolutely, the young man replied, and together they hurried to gather supplies, their laughter blending with the chorus of the community around them. But amid the camaraderie, Levi couldn't shake the twinge of unease at the corners of his mind. Would this sense of unity last? What happened after this day of hope faded into memory? As the sun began to descend, casting long shadows over the community, Levi felt both exhilaration and dread, pondering whether this day would mark a true beginning or just another fleeting moment of connection. And as he glanced around, longing for deeper answers, he found himself near the edge of the revitalized park. Something glimmered there, half buried in the dirt, a clue, perhaps, to a deeper mystery waiting to unfold. Levi knelt down, the cool earth pressing against his palms as he brushed away the dirt. His eyes widened as he uncovered a small, tarnished locket. It was a delicate, heart-shaped piece, etched with intricate designs, but the once vibrant metal lay dulled by time. He instinctively glanced around. The chatter of the community buzzed behind him, but in this moment, he felt a shift within. "What did you find?" the young man said, arriving at his side, curiosity etched across his face. "A locket." Levi held it up, the fading light catching the surface. The young man leaned closer, his expression shifting from intrigue to concern. "Do you think anyone else looking for it?" he asked, taking a step back to assess the find. "I hope so. I can't imagine losing something like this," Levi replied, feeling an unfamiliar tug at his heart. It was just a piece of jewelry, yet it felt loaded with untold stories. Suddenly, the work of the day felt distant, and all Levi could think about was the person who might have lost it. "Let us find out," the young man suggested, stepping into the role of team leader once more. "We should ask around. Someone might recognize it." They made their way through the gathering crowd, now bustling with excitement over their achievements. While others celebrated, Levi's thoughts swirled like leaves in the wind. He could sense how fragile their new sense of community was. Together on this project, it felt powerful. Scattered back into their separate lives, would it hold? As they approached the small cluster of neighbors cooling off under the shade of an old oak, Levi's apprehension bubbled over. The thought of revealing the locket felt heavy in his hands. What if it's just a trinket to them? What if it's nothing? He murmured. The young man, always aware of Levi's thoughts, nudged him gently. "It's not nothing if it's important to someone. We can't underestimate where this comes from." With a deep breath, Levi cleared his throat and stepped forward. "Excuse me, everyone, we found something in the park." He raised the locket, its tarnished surface catching their attention. "I think it might belong to someone here," he continued, his heart pounding. "Does this look familiar to anyone?" Glances exchanged. Whispers rippled through the group. A few stepped closer, their expressions shifting as curiosity took hold. And then, within the crowd, a woman took a step forward, her face pale. The locket appeared to steal the breath from her. "That was my mother's," she said softly, tears blinking in her eyes. "She used to wear it every day. I thought I'd lost it forever." The atmosphere shifted like a sudden downpour on a warm day. Levi felt the tears in her voice wrap around them, binding the moment together. The young man stood tall beside him, nearly radiating excitement for the connection they had helped forge. "Let us find out more about your mother," he urged, clapping his hands together gently, excitement bubbling in his voice. "This is how we build our community, right?" As the woman began to share stories of her mother, Levi understood. This was what the day was all about, the ties that bind, the connections that stretch beyond the surface. It made the work meaningful, gave it weight. In that moment, Levi's earlier fears faded. Perhaps unity wasn't just a fleeting moment. Maybe it was about carrying each other as stories, nurturing hope in one another. But in the back of his mind, a nagging thought lingered. How could they maintain this energy? Would everyday life challenge what had blossomed today? Beside him, the young man grinned, eyes sparkling with possibilities. "So, what do you think we should do next?" Levi turned to him, a rush of apprehension and hope flooding through him. "I think we have to keep sharing these stories." As the sun dipped below the horizon, shadows grew long, creating a tapestry of light and darkness around them. Levi looked back at the locket in his palm, wondering if this was just the beginning. What other stories lay buried beneath their feet, waiting to be heard? What else would they find when they dug deeper? The woman continued to speak, her voice steady despite the tears escaping down her cheeks. Levi listened closely as she spoke fondly of her mother, how the locket had been a gift for her 15th birthday, a swirling mix of love, nostalgia, and heartache. It painted a vivid picture in Levi's mind of a life touched by grace and challenges, just like their own community. Levi felt an unexpected warmth growing in his chest. Every word spun a delicate thread, intertwining their lives, drawing them all closer together. Questions bubbled in his mind as he watched the neighbors lean in, captivated by the stories shared. How could they not hold on to these moments, this heart? Your mom must have been amazing, he murmured, his eyes lingering on the woman's face. Yes, she really was, the woman replied, a smile breaking through her tears. Her stories helped shape who I am today. That locket always reminded me of her strength. With her voice steady, she encouraged others to share their stories too. One by one, neighbors began to speak of their own lost treasures, objects that held memories, dreams, and life lessons from their past. As Levi observed the transformation unfolding before him, he felt hope pulse through the crowd. Words connected them in ways no project or task ever could. This was community in its truest sense, hearts opening, walls falling away. Dangerously fragile, yet undeniably beautiful, the moment weighed heavily in the air, tinged with an electric current. But as the evening stretched on, he wondered if they could keep this dialogue alive. What if tomorrow came and swept it all away? Let us find little ways to keep sharing these stories, Levi suggested, his voice steady. We could have regular gatherings, maybe a community board where people can pin their own meanings, photos, notes, anything. Memories that connect us. The young man beamed, clearly inspired. That is a great idea. Stories can be powerful. We just need to show everyone that sharing them matters. Levi nodded, excitement bubbling inside him. It was more than just a plan. It was a spark of hope that could catch fire. As discussions rippled through the group, ideas blossomed, each one more vibrant than the last. Yet, as laughter filled the air, a fleeting thought invaded Levi's mind. What if not everyone wanted to share? What if there were parts of their pasts that felt too painful, too raw to unearth? Would the comfort of silence mean they remained stuck in shadows, afraid to embrace their truths? Even as the sun set and the stars began to twinkle above, the warm chatter around him started to fade into the backdrop of his thoughts. Levi looked around at the faces illuminated by the gentle glow of string lights strung hastily across the branches. Would they rise to the call? And then, in the crowd, he spotted a figure standing apart, the older man who had always kept to himself, his gaze fixed on the ground as if heavy with formidable memories. Levi's heart raced. This man had a story too, one that he might not even know he was ready to share. What happened if he took a step forward? With the locket still in hand and possibilities swirling around him, Levi knew that tomorrow could bring unforeseen challenges, but they had to try. He took a deep breath, feeling the heat of uncertainty prickle across his skin. Would this journey unveil truths that some were not prepared to confront? Was everyone ready to leave their past behind and embrace an uncertain future together? As he approached the older man, Levi's pulse quickened. Would he break the silence? Would this man's burden finally be unveiled? Levi took a tentative step toward the older man, the air around them thick with unspoken stories. He could sense the weight on that man's shoulders, the invisible heaviness that came from years of solitude. Levi's heart raced, a mixture of fear and resolve swirling in his chest. "Excuse me, sir," he began, his voice softer than he intended. "I couldn't help but notice you're standing apart. I'd love to hear your story too, if you feel ready." The older man looked up, surprise flickering across his features. Levi couldn't read his expression. Was it fear, anger, or shame? The silence stretched between them, a taut line of hesitation. "I've got no story worth telling," the man finally muttered, his gaze dropping once more to the ground, his features shadowed by the dim light. Every story matters. Levi pressed gently, feeling a conviction rising within him. We're all here to listen. Sometimes sharing can lighten the load. The man shifted uneasily, glancing at the gathering of neighbors who continued to share and laugh. Levi could see in his eyes a flicker of something hope mixed with the hesitation of abandonment. I don't belong here, he whispered, shaking his head. But you do, Levi insisted, willing his voice to convey sincerity. We all have our struggles and triumphs. You might be surprised how many of us feel just like you. The crowd's chatter softened, and Levi realized they were witnessing this fragile moment, the moment that could break or bind them together. The knitting of hearts wasn't always easy. Sometimes it started with the gentlest nudge. What if you shared just a piece? Just one memory that matters to you? The man's eyes began to glisten, hints of vulnerability breaking through his guarded demeanor. For a moment, Levi thought he might take that leap, that plunge into the shared waters of storytelling. But then the light dimmed, and a shadow of fear returned. I lost everything once, the man said, his voice cracking just slightly, revealing a raw edge of pain. I can't go back there. I just can't. Levi felt for him, understanding the weight of unhealed wounds. You don't have to go back alone. We're here, we'll face it together. There was a beat of silence, thick and pulsing. Around them, some neighbors exchanged glances, sensing the significance of this moment. Levi noticed the stake of unity. Could they really turn vulnerability into strength? As the older man battled within himself, his breath came heavier, but Levi held firm, his gaze steady. You don't have to share everything tonight, he added softly. Just a single memory. Choose one that brought you hope, even just for a fleeting moment. That's a start, right? With those words hanging in the air, Levi felt the tension shift slightly. The older man hesitated, caught in the balance of fear and the promise of acceptance. The stars twinkled, casting soft light amidst the gathering, as whispers of anticipation floated in the air. Would he take that tentative step forward? Would his voice fill the silence, reshaping the narrative for himself and for those who longed for connection? Levi stood on the precipice of possibility, breathless with the weight of what could lie ahead. What would happen if the older man defied his own silence? What stories were waiting to be unearthed? And just as the older man's lips parted as if to speak, a loud crash echoed through the crowd, a sudden distraction shattering the intimate moment. Levi turned, dread pooling in his stomach. What had interrupted this fragile link they were forging? The evening light transformed as chaos erupted behind them. A stack of crates had toppled over, sending tools and supplies crashing to the ground like thunder. People recoiled, surprised and startled, their laughter cut off. Levi's heart raced. Fear shot through the crowd, and people began to murmur anxiously. Is everyone okay? He called out, striding toward the source of the sound. The younger man rushed forward, too, his earlier uncertainty replaced by a protective instinct for the community they were building. The older man stood frozen, his earlier vulnerability slipping away with the crashing sound. Levi turned back to him, feeling the urgency in his bones. Let us check if anyone is hurt. He extended his hand, hoping to draw the older man into action. Together, the man blinked, his gaze flitting between the scattered tools and the worried faces around him. Slowly, he stepped forward. "Okay," he muttered, the word trembling. Levi felt hope ignite in his chest. With every step they took toward helping their neighbors, with every supply they gathered to restore order, the older man began to shift. The tension in his shoulders eased. Maybe it's not so bad, he muttered as he picked up a heavy shovel, resting it against his side like a shield. See? Levi smiled, feeling solidarity reaching out. We all have our parts to play together. As people began to help one another, the commotion dissolved into collaborative energy. Chairs were reset, crates were stacked back, and soon there was laughter again, turning fear into determination. Levi caught the older man glancing around. His expression was softer now, less wary. The young man stood close by. He said, leaning toward Levi with a conspiratorial grin. Sometimes, a small mess can bring people together. Levi nodded, warmth swelling within him. Every challenge they faced was another opportunity to bond. As everyone chipped in and worked, Levi noticed the older man begin to share snippets about why he hesitated to be part of their group. I just saw everyone else bonding. I figured I didn't belong in the stories they were creating. Not true, Levi replied, holding out an encouraging hand. Every single one of us is working through that feeling. You belong here. We need your voice. With a hesitant smile, the older man nodded. Maybe I have something worth sharing after all. Levi's heart sang. Yes, that's the spirit. As the last of the crates were set right, laughter filled the air once more, transforming the earlier awkwardness into a robust connection. This was a community growing, swelling with stories waiting to be shared. Later, after the cleanup, Levi stood at the front of the crowd again. But this time, it felt different, lighter, more connected. Thank you all for coming together today, he began, anticipation fluttering in his stomach. What started as a simple cleanup turned into something so much more important. He looked at the older man, who stood beside him now, shoulders squared with newfound confidence. We all have stories worth telling and moments worth sharing. Let us promise to keep this spirit alive, to continue building this community together. Their voices, once hesitant and fragmented, formed a chorus of agreement. Fairy lights twinkled in the dusk, illuminating glowing faces now united in camaraderie. With a heart brimming with warmth, Levi stepped down. He could feel the shift. There would still be challenges ahead, but they now had a platform, a foundation to support one another. As people chatted excitedly about future gatherings, the walls that had once seemed insurmountable began to topple. Levi knew, despite what the future held, this community was ready to embrace it together. Hope thrived in every shared glance, every smile. Moments built bridges just like their cleanup. And with each conversation, stories formed the heart of Levi's legacy, a series of connections that grew rich and deep, deepening the roots of their shared home, forever intertwined. The dusk faded to night, and laughter reverberated through the park, a sweet symphony of acceptance echoing in the air. If you felt the power of that transformation, you need to subscribe now to catch the next stories that will inspire and uplift you. Leave a like now to support the channel and feed the algorithm. The difference you can make is incredible. Don't wait not even one more second. Comment your feelings about this heartwarming ending, and share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see how we can bridge gaps and come together. Your support matters more than you know.